"Get your filthy hands off that door." The shout cracked through the Ridgemont precinct lobby so hard that the old man filling out a theft report dropped his pen. Officer Brenda Holloway stormed across the marble floor, one hand already resting near her holster. "You smell like a sewer rat. This is a police station, not a shelter." The woman at the door froze for half a second. Black woman. Early 50s. Dark blue coat faded at the sleeves. Old leather briefcase hanging from one hand. Rainwater still clinging to the hem of her pants from the storm outside. She looked tired. Not weak. Tired. "Ma'am," she said quietly, "I am here to speak with the captain." Holloway laughed right in her face. "You think people like you get meetings with captains?" Several officers behind the front desk smirked without looking up from their computers. Officer Craig Dawson leaned against the coffee station with crossed arms, chewing gum slowly like he had seen this scene 100 times before. "Maybe she wandered in looking for a free sandwich," he muttered. A couple civilians waiting in plastic chairs glanced over, then quickly looked away. Nobody wanted attention inside Ridgemont Precinct. Not anymore. The woman tightened her grip on the briefcase. Her knuckles turned pale brown under the fluorescent lights. "Officer," she said calmly, "I have every right to enter this building." Holloway stepped closer until they were almost chest to chest. "Rights?" she snapped. "Trash like you does not walk into my station demanding anything." She jabbed one finger into the woman's shoulder hard enough to push her backward. The briefcase slipped from her hand and hit the tile floor with a sharp crack. Papers shifted inside. For 1 second, a small digital recorder became visible beneath a folder stamped with the city seal. Then the flap closed again. Nobody noticed except the young rookie near the copy machine. Officer Ethan Cole frowned slightly. Something about the woman did not fit. She stood too straight. Her eyes moved too carefully. She looked around the lobby once, not nervously, but methodically. Camera above the entrance. Badge numbers. Desk layout. Exit routes. Ethan opened his mouth. "Officer Holloway, maybe we should just stay out of it," Holloway barked without turning around. Ethan immediately went quiet. Dawson grinned wider. "Kid still thinks this place runs on rules." The woman bent down slowly to pick up her briefcase. Her left hand trembled just slightly before she steadied it again. A thin silver scar ran across her wrist. Old injury. Old pain. She lifted the case carefully like it mattered more than the humiliation filling the room around her. "Have you ever noticed how people treat someone they think nobody will defend?" Holloway folded her arms. "You deaf too," she said loudly enough for the whole lobby to hear. "I said get out before I drag you out myself." A little boy sitting beside his mother tightened both hands around her purse strap. The mother lowered her eyes immediately. She recognized the danger in Holloway's voice. Everyone did. The woman at the door inhaled slowly. Calm. Controlled. "Officer," she said, "all I asked was to speak to Captain Bryce." Dawson pushed himself off the coffee counter and walked over beside Holloway. "Captain Bryce does not meet with people like this," he said. "Especially not smelling like cheap rainwater and bus stations." A few quiet chuckles spread through the room. Someone near the back lifted a phone slightly, pretending to text while recording. Holloway noticed and smirked harder. Public humiliation felt even better with an audience. "Tell you what," she said. "You walk out now, and maybe I forget you were trespassing." The woman looked directly at her. Not angry. Not afraid. That calm expression somehow made Holloway even more irritated. "You are making a mistake," the woman said softly. Dawson burst out laughing. "Oh no," he mocked. "Did we upset a lawyer?" Holloway stepped forward again. "The only mistake here," she hissed, "is you walking in here acting like you belong." Then she slapped her. Hard. The sound exploded through the lobby. Even the buzzing fluorescent lights seemed to go silent afterward. The woman's head turned sharply from the impact. Her glasses slipped sideways. The little boy near the chairs flinched and buried his face into his mother's arm. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Holloway smiled slowly, breathing heavier now. That is what happens when trash forgets its place. The woman touched her cheek carefully. Red was already rising across her skin. Dawson shook his head with a grin. Should have dragged her out too. Ethan Cole stared at Holloway in disbelief. Brenda, he whispered. She did not even touch you. Holloway rounded on him instantly. You got something to say, rookie? Ethan looked around the room. Nobody would back him up. Not Captain Bryce's desk sergeant. Not the officers pretending not to watch. Not the civilians staring at the floor. He swallowed hard and stepped back. Silence won again. The woman adjusted her glasses slowly. Then she picked up the briefcase from the floor. One corner had split open from the fall. The digital recorder inside blinked once beneath the papers before disappearing again. She looked directly at Holloway. Officer, she said quietly, you just made a very serious mistake. Holloway laughed in her face. Then report me. The woman nodded once. Almost sadly. Then she turned and walked toward the exit. Dawson called after her. Next time try the homeless shelter across town. More laughter. The glass doors opened. Cold rain air swept briefly through the lobby. The woman stepped outside without another word. Holloway grabbed the station phone and smirked at Dawson. Get maintenance down here, she said loudly. Lobby smells contaminated. More laughter spread across the room. Then the front desk computer suddenly chimed. Once. Twice. Sharp emergency tones. Every screen in the lobby flashed red at the same time. Ethan looked up first. His face drained of color. Across the top of every monitor, one message appeared in bold city lettering: all officers report to main hall immediately. Mandatory command staff assembly. Dawson frowned. What the hell is this? Then another line appeared beneath it. Welcome Chief Maya Sullivan. The emergency tone still echoed through the precinct when Officer Brenda Holloway slowly lowered her coffee cup. Around her, officers stared at the flashing red screens in confusion. Welcome Chief Maya Sullivan. The word sat there like a loaded gun nobody wanted to touch. Who the hell is Maya Sullivan? Dawson muttered. Ethan Cole did not answer. His eyes stayed fixed on the glass doors where the woman had disappeared into the rain less than 30 seconds earlier. Outside, Maya Sullivan stood beside the curb beneath the gray storm clouds, one hand pressed lightly against the red mark rising across her cheek. Traffic hissed through wet streets behind her. She did not cry. She did not shake. But her breathing had changed. Slower now. Controlled. Like somebody forcing pain into a locked box. She opened the old leather briefcase carefully. The corner was torn from where it hit the floor. Inside sat a small recorder with its red light still blinking steadily. Beside it rested a folded city appointment letter stamped with the Ridgemont seal. Maya stared at the recorder for a long moment before turning it off. Her reflection stared back from the dark screen. Tired eyes. Wet hair. Quiet anger. A black SUV rolled to the curb beside her. The passenger window lowered halfway. Ma'am, a driver asked carefully. Councilwoman Price is asking if you are all right. Maya nodded once. I am fine. But she did not move toward the car yet. Across the street, the police station windows glowed under fluorescent light. Officers moved inside like shadows behind glass. Some laughing. Some confused. Some already nervous. Maya looked at the building the same way someone looks at an old scar that never healed correctly. 6 years earlier, another police station had looked almost exactly like that. Same dirty windows. Same buzzing lights. Same silence from good people too afraid to speak. Her younger brother Andre had walked into that station alive. He left in an ambulance 3 hours later. Resisting arrest, the official report had said. Maya still remembered standing beside his hospital bed listening to monitors beep while bruises darkened under his skin. She remembered her mother crying into folded church tissues. She remembered promising herself one thing. If she ever wore a badge again, she would never let silence become policy. The rain intensified. Small drops tapped softly against the briefcase. Inside the SUV, Councilwoman Evelyn Price watched Maya carefully. "We can postpone the ceremony," she said gently through the open window. "Nobody would blame you after what happened in there." Maya finally looked over. "That is exactly why we cannot postpone it." Her voice stayed calm, but something sharp lived underneath it now. If this is what they do when they think nobody important is watching, then the city has a bigger problem than misconduct. The councilwoman fell silent. Maya slid into the back seat at last. As the SUV pulled away from the curb, her phone buzzed quietly. Unknown number. She answered without hesitation. "This is Maya Sullivan." Silence. Then a nervous male voice. "Young. Ma'am, this is Officer Ethan Cole. From the precinct." Maya glanced toward the station through the rain-streaked window. "Yes, Officer Cole." Ethan lowered his voice. "I just wanted to say, what happened in there was wrong." In the background, somebody shouted his name across the bullpen. Ethan's breathing tightened immediately. Fear. "There are cameras in the lobby," he whispered quickly. "But sometimes footage disappears around here." Then the line went dead. Maya stared at the phone screen for a second. Councilwoman Price noticed the shift in her expression. "What is it?" Maya looked back down at the recorder inside the briefcase. "Somebody inside is scared," she said quietly. "That means they already know the truth. Have you ever watched people decide your worth before you even spoke your name?" The SUV turned downtown toward City Hall. Outside, Ridgemont moved through another gray morning. Bus stops crowded with workers. Mothers dragging children through rain. Store owners unlocking metal shutters. Ordinary people. The same people who walked into that precinct every day hoping the badge would protect them instead of humiliate them. Maya reached into the inner pocket of her coat and pulled out an old silver badge wrapped carefully in cloth. Her father's badge. The metal was scratched with age. She rubbed her thumb gently across the number engraved beneath the shield. 2714, Officer Daniel Sullivan. "You still carry it," Councilwoman Price said softly. Maya nodded. He believed the badge meant dignity. Her eyes hardened slightly. Somewhere along the way, this city forgot that. The SUV slowed beneath the covered entrance of City Hall. Security officers already waited outside the doors. One stepped forward holding a garment bag with dark navy fabric inside. Maya opened it just enough to reveal 4 silver stars stitched onto a chief's uniform collar. Before she could close the bag again, her phone buzzed one more time. Another unknown number. This time no voice spoke at all. Only breathing. Then a woman whispered softly through the speaker. "You should have walked away while you still could." Click. The call ended. Maya slowly lowered the phone. Inside the garment bag, the silver stars caught the light like cold fire. The silver stars inside the garment bag caught the light for only a second before Maya Sullivan zipped the bag shut again. But that second was enough. The young security officer standing beneath the City Hall awning noticed the movement immediately. His eyes narrowed slightly. Not curiosity. Recognition. "Ma'am," he said carefully, do you need help carrying that upstairs? Maya adjusted the old leather briefcase against her side. I can carry it. Her voice stayed calm, but her cheek still burned from the slap inside Ridgemont Precinct. The red mark had faded slightly now, though not enough to disappear completely. City Hall smelled different from the station. Clean marble. Lemon polish. Expensive coffee drifting from the upper floors where council members held private meetings behind heavy oak doors. Men in tailored suits walked past security scanners without stopping. Women in heels crossed polished floors carrying tablets and legal folders. Nobody looked at Maya twice at first glance. Middle-aged black woman. Wet coat. Old briefcase. Tired eyes. Invisible. A receptionist behind the front desk glanced up briefly. Deliveries go through the south entrance, she said automatically. Maya stopped walking. Councilwoman Evelyn Price looked sharply toward the receptionist, but Maya raised one hand gently before she could speak. I am not a delivery, Maya replied quietly. The receptionist barely looked embarrassed. Then personnel processing is downstairs. Another assumption. Another dismissal. Councilwoman Price stepped forward this time. She is with me. The receptionist's entire posture changed instantly. Oh. Of course. I apologize. Maya noticed the shift immediately. Respect had nothing to do with dignity here. Only proximity to power. As they crossed the lobby, two city employees whispered near the elevators. That is the woman from the station video. Already? Dawson posted it in a private police group. Somebody leaked it. Maya kept walking, but her grip tightened slightly around the briefcase handle. Video. Of course. In Ridgemont, humiliation moved faster than truth. Inside the elevator, Councilwoman Price exhaled heavily. I can have communications shut it down. Maya shook her head. No. Let people see it. The councilwoman looked surprised. You are not worried how it looks? Maya stared at her own reflection in the elevator mirror. Wet coat. Red cheek. No badge. People like Holloway survive because too many things stay hidden. The elevator doors opened onto the command floor. Quiet carpet. Dark wood walls. Framed photos of former police chiefs lined the hallway. Every face white except one. Chief Leonard Graves. 20 years earlier. The first black chief in Ridgemont history. Maya stopped briefly in front of his photo. Someone had scratched the corner of the frame long ago. Tiny damage. Easy to miss. Not accidental. He lasted 11 months, Councilwoman Price said softly. Then they pushed him out. Maya said nothing. At the end of the hallway, Captain Alan Bryce stood waiting outside the conference room. Tall. Gray-haired. Uniform pressed perfectly. But sweat darkened the collar beneath his badge. Councilwoman. He nodded stiffly before looking at Maya. His eyes paused for 1 second on the bruise across her face. Shame flickered there. Then fear covered it quickly. Ma'am, he said carefully, before the ceremony starts, there may be complications. Maya met his eyes evenly. Complications? Bryce lowered his voice. The officers downstairs are already talking. Holloway says a homeless trespasser tried to provoke her. He hesitated. Dawson claims there was no assault. Maya opened the briefcase slowly. Bryce's eyes dropped immediately to the recorder resting inside beside the city appointment letter. The blood drained from his face. You recorded it, he whispered. I recorded all of it. Silence filled the hallway. Somewhere deeper inside the building, reporters were already arriving downstairs. Camera flashes flickered through distant glass walls. Bryce rubbed one hand nervously across his jaw. You do not understand this precinct, he muttered. Those officers protect each other. Maya's expression hardened slightly. That is exactly what I understand. A young assistant suddenly hurried down the hallway carrying a tablet. Captain Bryce, she said breathlessly, there is a problem with the station footage. Bryce turned sharply. What kind of problem? The assistant swallowed. Lobby camera 12 stopped recording at the exact moment of the incident. Maya and Bryce locked eyes instantly. Not an accident. Ethan Cole had been right. The assistant looked between them nervously. Also, she hesitated. Officer Holloway is downstairs demanding to speak directly with the new chief before the ceremony begins. Bryce cursed quietly under his breath. She still does not know. No, sir. The assistant lowered the tablet slowly. But she found out somebody in the station made a phone call after the incident. Maya's phone vibrated again inside her coat pocket. Unknown number. Same as before. This time only one message appeared on the screen. We know you have the recording. Captain Bryce stared at the message on Maya Sullivan's phone like it might explode in his hands. We know you have the recording. The hallway outside the conference room suddenly felt smaller. Tighter. Colder. Reporters moved somewhere downstairs behind closed doors. Camera shutters clicked faintly through the building like distant gunfire. Bryce lowered his voice immediately. Delete that message. Maya slipped the phone calmly back into her coat pocket. Why? Bryce glanced nervously toward the elevators. Because if Holloway realizes you kept evidence, she will start tearing that precinct apart looking for whoever helped you. Maya studied him carefully. You sound more afraid of her than internal affairs. Bryce did not answer. That silence told its own story. Inside the nearby conference room, city staff rushed around preparing the swearing-in ceremony. Flags adjusted. Podium centered. Microphones tested. Everything polished. Everything controlled. But beneath the clean marble and dark wood, panic was spreading quietly through the building. A communications aide hurried past carrying a tablet. Sir, she said to Bryce, the station video is already circulating online. Bryce cursed under his breath. Take it down. We are trying, the aide replied. But people already copied it. Maya held out her hand calmly. May I? The aide hesitated before giving her the tablet. On screen, shaky cell phone footage from the precinct lobby played silently. Holloway screaming. Dawson laughing. Maya standing alone beside the entrance in her wet coat. Thousands of comments already flooded beneath it. Looks like a drug addict. She probably attacked the cop first. People always play victim now. Maya's expression barely changed, but her thumb paused briefly over one frame. The exact moment before the slap. Stop, she said quietly. The aide froze the image. Bryce frowned. What? Maya zoomed in slowly toward the top corner of the screen. Reflected faintly in the lobby glass behind Holloway sat the timestamp from camera 12. 8 hours 14 minutes and 32 seconds, Maya's eyes narrowed slightly. Interesting. Bryce folded his arms impatiently. What is interesting? Maya handed the tablet back. The public video continues for 12 seconds after the official lobby feed supposedly failed. The aide blinked. Bryce's face tightened instantly. Maya said nothing else. She did not explain how she noticed it so quickly. She simply adjusted the strap on her briefcase again. But now Bryce looked at her differently. More carefully. As if he had suddenly realized the woman standing beside him saw details other people missed. One of the officers outside the conference room muttered under his breath, "How did she catch that?" Another replied quietly, "I do not know." Downstairs, elevator doors burst open hard enough to echo through the hallway. Officer Brenda Holloway marched out first, Dawson right behind her. Both still in uniform. Both angry. Holloway's eyes swept the hallway immediately like a predator searching for prey. "Where is this new chief?" she snapped at the security desk. "I am done waiting." A city employee pointed nervously toward Bryce's hallway. Holloway started walking fast. Dawson followed close behind, jaw tight. "This whole thing is ridiculous," he muttered loudly. One trespasser cries assault and suddenly everybody panics. Maya remained standing exactly where she was. Calm. Silent. The old leather briefcase resting against her leg. Holloway turned the corner and stopped cold when she saw her. Recognition flashed instantly across her face. Then disgust returned just as quickly. "You." Bryce stepped forward immediately. "Officer Holloway, not another word." But Holloway ignored him completely. "How the hell did you get in here?" she demanded. "This floor is restricted." Maya met her eyes evenly. "Then perhaps security should improve." Dawson scoffed. "Still acting important." Holloway pointed toward Maya's bruised cheek. "You should have pressed charges already if you were really assaulted." Maya answered quietly. "Would it have mattered?" Silence hit harder than shouting. Even Dawson stopped smirking for a second. Holloway recovered first. "You think standing around in City Hall makes you special?" She snapped. "I know your type. Professional victim." Maya did not move. "And I know yours." Holloway stepped closer immediately. "Excuse me." Maya's voice stayed level. Officers who stop seeing people eventually stop seeing the law too. Bryce's eyes widened slightly. Dawson laughed sharply. "Listen to this lady lecturing cops." But something had shifted now. Small. Dangerous. The young communications aide standing nearby looked again at the frozen timestamp on her tablet. Ethan Cole's warning echoed in her head. Camera 12 stopped recording at the exact moment of the incident. She slowly looked back toward Maya. Suspicion replacing assumption. Holloway noticed the change immediately. "Do not listen to her," she barked. "She is manipulating all of you." Then her eyes dropped suddenly toward the partially open briefcase. The recorder inside blinked once beneath the papers. Red light. Recording light. Holloway's face changed instantly. "What is that?" she demanded. Maya calmly closed the flap. Too late. Holloway had already seen it. "Bryce," she snapped sharply, "I want that bag searched right now." The hallway went silent. Then the conference room doors behind Maya slowly opened. "Chief arrival confirmed," a voice announced from inside. "We are ready to begin." The conference room doors stood open behind Maya Sullivan like the entrance to a courtroom. Bright lights. American flags. Rows of chairs filling with city officials and reporters. Somewhere inside, microphones squealed softly as technicians adjusted sound levels. But nobody moved toward the ceremony yet. All attention stayed fixed on the hallway. On the old leather briefcase. On Officer Brenda Holloway's furious face. "I said search the bag," Holloway snapped again. Two security officers near the elevators exchanged uncertain looks. Captain Bryce stepped forward immediately. "Officer Holloway, you are out of line." "No," Holloway shot back. "I am doing my job." She pointed directly at Maya. "This woman illegally recorded officers inside a police facility." Maya answered calmly. "That is interesting." Holloway narrowed her eyes. "What is interesting?" "You recognized the recorder very quickly for someone who claims nothing happened." Silence hit the hallway for half a second. Sharp silence. One reporter near the conference room entrance slowly lowered his camera. Dawson stepped in before the moment could grow. "She is baiting you, Brenda." Then he looked at security. "Search the bag. Now." Maya remained perfectly still. Wet coat. Bruised cheek. Quiet eyes. Not one step backward. Under City Code 14B, she said evenly, a civilian carrying evidence connected to a potential assault complaint cannot have personal property searched without supervisory authorization. One of the security officers frowned immediately. That is, actually correct. Holloway whipped around. Since when? The officer hesitated. Since the reform update last year. Holloway scoffed loudly. Look at her. You really think she knows city code? Maya said nothing. But Bryce was staring at her differently now. Not like a victim. Like a problem he no longer understood. Dawson folded his arms tighter. Funny how a random trespasser suddenly sounds like legal counsel. Funny, Maya replied softly, how two officers suddenly sound nervous. Another silence. Bigger this time. The communications aide still held the tablet showing the frozen lobby timestamp. 8 hours 14 minutes and 32 seconds, her eyes moved nervously between Holloway and Maya. Something no longer fit. Then a quiet voice broke the tension. She did ask for your badge number. Everyone turned. Ethan Cole stood near the hallway entrance, pale but steady. Holloway's face darkened instantly. Excuse me. Ethan swallowed hard. Back at the station. Before the incident. She asked for identification and procedure. Holloway took one dangerous step toward him. Watch yourself, rookie. Ethan's voice weakened immediately under the pressure. I am just saying what happened. Dawson laughed coldly. No. You are saying what she wants you to say. The hallway energy shifted again. Tiny hope. Then fear crushed it almost immediately. Holloway pointed directly at Ethan. You want internal affairs sniffing around your probation file too? Ethan froze. Bryce closed his eyes briefly. There it was again. Silence protecting power. Maya watched Ethan carefully but did not rescue him. She understood that look too well. A good person trapped inside the wrong room. Holloway turned back toward Maya with fresh confidence. You know what I think, she said loudly enough for the reporters to hear. I think this whole thing is staged. She gestured toward the conference room. Maybe somebody upstairs hired a professional agitator to embarrass the department before the chief arrived. Several reporters immediately started whispering to each other. One lifted a camera again. That is not true, the communications aide said quietly before she could stop herself. Holloway spun toward her. Then explain why camera 12 mysteriously failed. The aide hesitated. Wrong move. Holloway seized control instantly. Exactly. She pointed at Maya again. Because people like her know how to manipulate sympathy. Maya's expression never changed, but her fingers tightened slightly around the briefcase handle. Inside, the recorder rested beneath the appointment letter and her father's old silver badge. 3 generations of belief in the law hidden beneath one broken latch. Bryce finally raised his voice. Enough. The hallway went quiet. Officer Holloway, he said carefully, return to the precinct immediately. Holloway stared at him in disbelief. You are sending me away because of her. I am ordering you, Bryce repeated. Dawson stepped closer beside Holloway. This is insane. But Holloway was not finished yet. Her eyes dropped once more toward the briefcase. Then suddenly she smiled. Small. Sharp. Dangerous. You know what? She said softly. Keep the bag. Maya watched her carefully now. Holloway tilted her head slightly. Because if that recorder really captured what happened, her smile widened slowly. Then the original lobby footage will prove what happened before the recording started. Bryce's expression changed instantly. Maya caught it too. What footage? She asked quietly. Holloway looked directly into her eyes for the first time without arrogance. Only calculation now. The backup server, she said. The one nobody outside the command staff is supposed to know exists. Dawson's grin returned immediately. And guess who controls access to it? The hallway fell silent again. Then Bryce's phone suddenly buzzed in his hand. He looked down at the screen. His face lost color almost instantly. The backup server just locked itself, he whispered. Somebody is deleting files. The hallway erupted all at once. Lock the server now, Captain Bryce barked into his phone. Nobody touches that system until I say so. But panic had already spread through the command floor. Staff members whispered near the conference room entrance. Reporters leaned forward with sharpened attention. Even the security officers looked uncertain now. Officer Brenda Holloway's confidence flickered for the first time since the morning began. They are bluffing, she snapped loudly. There is no backup footage. But Dawson's jaw tightened beside her. He knew there was. Maya Sullivan watched both of them carefully without moving an inch. The old leather briefcase remained tucked beneath her arm. Worn edges. Broken latch. Rainwater still darkening the seams. It looked ordinary. Cheap even. But inside sat something powerful enough to make trained officers nervous. Bryce turned sharply toward the communications aide. Get IT downstairs now. The aide nodded quickly and hurried away, clutching the tablet to her chest. As she passed Maya, the frozen timestamp still glowed faintly on the screen. 8 hours 14 minutes and 32 seconds, Maya's eyes narrowed again. Pause. The aide stopped immediately. Holloway groaned loudly. Oh, come on. Maya stepped closer to the tablet. Not dramatic. Not emotional. Careful. Focused. She zoomed slowly into the lower right corner of the frozen image. Tiny white letters reflected against the lobby glass. Cam 12 archive active. Bryce's face changed instantly. That should not be there, he whispered. Dawson snapped toward him. What does that mean? Bryce did not answer immediately. Maya did. It means the system started transferring footage before camera 12 went offline. Silence. Heavy silence. One reporter quietly raised his camera again. Holloway folded her arms aggressively. That proves nothing. Maya looked at her calmly. Then why are you worried? Holloway stepped forward immediately. I am worried because some woman walks into a police station with hidden recording equipment and suddenly everybody forgets how law enforcement works. Law enforcement, Maya replied softly, does not usually panic when cameras survive. Another silence. Sharp enough to cut through the hallway noise. Ethan Cole stood near the elevators gripping his phone tightly. Sweat lined his forehead now. He had seen this before. Reports changing. Footage disappearing. Good officers learning to stay quiet. But something felt different this time. Holloway noticed him watching. You got something else to say, rookie? Ethan hesitated. Then slowly shook his head. Fear won again. But not completely. A tiny vibration buzzed inside Maya's coat pocket. She glanced down briefly. Unknown sender. One image attachment. She opened it carefully. Her eyes paused for the first time all morning. The image showed a close-up photograph of the precinct evidence server downstairs. On the monitor, one line flashed in red letters, archive copy complete. Someone inside the station had secretly preserved the footage before deletion began. Maya quietly turned the screen off again. What is that? Holloway demanded immediately. Nothing that concerns you. Dawson laughed harshly. Everybody acts brave until evidence disappears. Maya met his eyes evenly. Interesting choice of words. Dawson's grin faded. Have you ever noticed how guilty people reveal themselves before the truth even arrives? The conference room behind them buzzed louder now. More city officials had arrived. Through the open doorway, television monitors displayed the Ridgemont City seal waiting for the ceremony broadcast to begin. But nobody cared about ceremony anymore. They cared about the recording. The camera. The missing footage. Bryce suddenly held out his hand toward Maya. I need the recorder. Holloway smirked immediately. Finally. But Maya did not move. Why? She asked quietly. Bryce lowered his voice. Because if this escalates publicly before verification, the department could collapse. Maya's bruised cheek caught the overhead light as she looked at him. Departments do not collapse because truth exists. Bryce's expression tightened painfully. You do not understand what this city becomes if trust dies. Maya answered without hesitation. Trust already died downstairs. Nobody spoke after that. Even Holloway looked unsettled for one brief second. Then the elevator doors opened again. Two IT technicians rushed onto the floor carrying laptops and portable drives. One of them stopped abruptly after seeing Maya. His eyes dropped instantly to the old briefcase in her hand. Specifically to the silver edge barely visible beneath the papers inside. Badge metal. Old badge metal. Recognition flashed across his face before he quickly looked away. Holloway caught it immediately. What did you just see? She demanded. The technician swallowed hard. Nothing. Do not lie to me. The man hesitated again. Wrong move. Holloway stepped closer. Answer the question. Before he could speak, every monitor inside the conference room suddenly flickered black. Then one by one, screens across the floor lit up with restored lobby footage. Frozen on a single frame. Officer Brenda Holloway's hand raised inches from Maya Sullivan's face. The frozen image filled every monitor on the command floor. Officer Brenda Holloway's hand raised beside Maya Sullivan's face. 1 second before impact. 1 second before the entire morning changed. Nobody spoke at first. Reporters slowly moved closer. Camera shutters clicked softly through the silence. Holloway recovered fastest. That proves nothing, she snapped. Play the full clip. But the screen did not move. The image remained frozen while a red warning message blinked beneath it. Archive file corrupted. Recovery in progress. Dawson exhaled sharply beside her. Convenient. Maya watched the screen carefully. Not the slap. The timestamp. The system behavior. The server path running across the lower corner. Bryce noticed her focus immediately. You read server structures, he asked before he could stop himself. Maya answered quietly. Enough to know somebody panicked during deletion. Holloway rolled her eyes dramatically. Listen to her. Now she is an IT expert too. But her voice sounded tighter now. Less certain. One of the reporters whispered to another, why would a random civilian know that? Holloway heard it. Her jaw hardened immediately. Because she rehearsed this, she barked loudly. This whole thing is theater. The conference room doors finally opened wider behind them. Staff members nervously invited city officials inside for the ceremony, but almost nobody moved. The hallway had become the real story now. Maya slowly lowered the briefcase onto a nearby wooden bench. The broken latch shifted open slightly from the movement. Something silver slid partly into view beneath the papers. Old badge metal. Worn smooth with age. Ethan Cole noticed it first. His eyes widened slightly. That badge, he whispered before stopping himself. Maya gently closed the flap again. Too late. Bryce had seen it too. His expression changed. Not recognition exactly. Memory. Somewhere deep in the past. Holloway stepped closer immediately. What are you hiding in there? Maya looked at her evenly. Something that still means something to me. Holloway laughed coldly. People like you always hide behind old stories. That sentence landed harder than she realized. For the first time all morning, Maya's composure flickered slightly. Just slightly. Her thumb brushed unconsciously across the bruise on her cheek. Then across the edge of the briefcase. Bryce noticed both movements. Officer Sullivan, he said quietly before catching himself. Silence. Tiny silence. Holloway frowned instantly. What did you just call her? Bryce's face tightened. Nothing. But Maya's eyes had already shifted toward him. He knew the name. Or thought he did. The memory returned to him slowly now. Another Sullivan. Another badge. 20 years earlier. Officer Daniel Sullivan. Honest. Respected. The kind of cop younger officers trusted instinctively. Bryce remembered the funeral too. Black umbrellas under hard rain. A daughter standing beside the casket refusing to cry in public. You knew my father, Maya said softly. Holloway's eyes snapped back toward Bryce. Father? Bryce ignored her completely now. Daniel Sullivan saved my career once, he admitted quietly. Internal Affairs tried to bury a corruption complaint. He refused to sign the false report. Dawson scoffed loudly. Everybody has a dead hero story. But Ethan was staring now at the old silver badge outline beneath the flap. The number partially visible through the opening. 2714, his breathing slowed. He had seen that number before. Downstairs in the precinct memorial hallway. Officer Daniel Sullivan. Killed in the line of duty. Wait, Ethan whispered. Holloway immediately turned on him again. You keep your mouth shut. Ethan flinched hard enough for everyone to notice. Another emotional crack spreading through the hallway. Maya remained calm, but the old wound had already reopened behind her eyes. Hospital lights. Her brother Andre gasping for breath years later. Her mother folding funeral clothes in silence. Every promise she made after that. Every reason she never walked away from the badge even after it destroyed her family twice. Her phone buzzed suddenly inside her coat. Another unknown number. She opened the message carefully. One sentence. We found the rookie who called you. Ethan's face lost color instantly as if he somehow already knew. Holloway noticed the shift. So did Dawson. What is wrong with him? Dawson muttered. Maya looked from the message to Ethan. Fear. Real fear now. Not for herself. For him. Bryce saw it too. Somebody inside that precinct is monitoring private calls, Maya said quietly. Holloway folded her arms tighter. Or maybe your little witness suddenly realized lying has consequences. Ethan shook his head immediately. I did not lie. Then prove it, Holloway snapped. The hallway fell silent again. The frozen screen behind them still showed her raised hand inches from Maya's face. 1 second before the slap. 1 second before truth became dangerous. Then suddenly the corrupted archive flickered. The image jumped forward 3 frames on every monitor at once. Holloway's palm now pressed fully against Maya Sullivan's cheek. And from somewhere deep inside the damaged audio file, a voice began to play. Officer, you just made a serious mistake. Officer, you just made a serious mistake. Maya Sullivan's recorded voice echoed through the command floor speakers with a cold clarity that made several reporters stop writing mid-sentence. The restored footage remained frozen on every monitor. Holloway's hand against Maya's face. The bruise beginning to rise. For one dangerous second, the hallway leaned toward truth. Then Brenda Holloway took control back. Pause that recording right now, she snapped. One of the IT technicians hesitated. Wrong move. Holloway stepped directly in front of the monitors like she owned the building. Everybody here is forgetting one thing, she said loudly. This woman illegally entered a police facility under false pretenses. Murmurs spread instantly through the crowd. Dawson jumped in beside her immediately. Exactly. No identification. Hidden recorder. Interfering with active officers. A reporter raised his hand slightly. Officer Holloway, are you saying the assault was justified? Holloway did not blink. I am saying officers make split-second decisions when suspicious individuals refuse compliance. Maya stood silently near the wooden bench, old briefcase resting at her side. Bruised cheek. Wet coat. No badge visible. No authority visible. To most people watching, Holloway still looked more believable. Uniform. Gun belt. Command voice. The power of the badge still outweighed the power of truth in that hallway. Dawson pointed toward Maya sharply. Ask yourself something. Why would a normal civilian know police procedure, server systems, and city code? Maybe because she listens better than you, Ethan Cole muttered before he could stop himself. Holloway turned instantly. You are done speaking. Ethan fell silent again. The crowd noticed. Fear moved through the hallway now just as strongly as suspicion. Captain Bryce rubbed both hands across his face. Brenda, enough. No, Captain, Holloway shot back. Not enough. She pointed toward the conference room. The city is about to swear in a new chief, and suddenly this woman appears trying to sabotage the department. Another reporter lifted his camera. Are you accusing her of political interference? I am accusing her of manipulation, Holloway replied immediately. People like this survive by playing victim. Maya finally spoke again. Quiet. Controlled. People like this? Holloway smirked slightly. You know exactly what I mean. The silence afterward was uglier than shouting. Several city officials looked away uncomfortably. But nobody challenged her directly. Not yet. One of the television monitors suddenly flickered again. The recovered archive attempted to advance another few seconds. Audio crackled through static. Holloway's voice filled the speakers. Trash like you does not belong in my station. The room froze. Holloway reacted instantly. Corrupted audio, she barked. Deepfake editing exists now. Everybody knows that. Dawson nodded aggressively. Exactly. Anybody can manipulate clips. Tiny hope flickered again when one older council member frowned toward the screen. That sounds authentic to me. But Holloway crushed the moment immediately. With respect, Councilman, you are not a forensic analyst. Then she turned toward security officers near the elevators. Escort her out until this investigation is complete. Two officers hesitated before stepping toward Maya. The hallway cameras kept recording. Reporters whispered urgently. Phones lifted higher. Public opinion was shifting back toward whoever sounded strongest. Holloway knew it. She straightened her uniform proudly. False victory settling into her posture. You do not belong on this floor, she told Maya coldly. You never did. Maya picked up the briefcase calmly. Interesting. Holloway narrowed her eyes. What now? Maya looked toward the frozen footage still paused across every screen. You keep talking about what happened after I entered the station. Her voice stayed soft. But nobody seems interested in why Camera 12 started archiving before contact was made. Bryce looked up sharply. So did the IT technicians. One whispered quietly to the other, she is right. Auto archive only triggers during flagged conduct events. Holloway heard him. Panic flashed across her face for half a second before anger buried it again. Shut that system down, she ordered immediately. Now. We cannot, the technician admitted nervously. The archive mirrored externally before deletion. Silence crashed through the hallway again. Dawson cursed under his breath. Holloway stepped closer to Maya until they stood inches apart. You planned this. Maya met her eyes evenly. No. You planned this every time you thought nobody important was watching. Holloway's jaw tightened hard enough to shake. Around them, the crowd no longer looked fully convinced. But they were still afraid. Afraid of uniforms. Afraid of consequences. Afraid of choosing the wrong side too early. Then Bryce's phone rang again. He answered quickly, listened for 3 seconds, and went pale. The mayor's office wants the ceremony to proceed immediately, he said quietly. Holloway smiled for the first time in minutes. Good. Then she looked directly at Maya. Let her watch from outside the room. The conference doors opened wide behind them. Bright lights spilled into the hallway. Cameras turned toward the stage inside. And above the podium, the giant digital screen suddenly refreshed with one new line of text, "Please welcome our new chief of police." The giant screen above the conference stage glowed across the hallway. "Please welcome our new chief of police." Reporters rushed into the room immediately. Camera crews adjusted lights. City officials straightened ties and jackets. The ceremony was moving forward whether the hallway survived or not. And Officer Brenda Holloway intended to survive it. She stepped directly in front of Maya Sullivan again, blocking the path toward the conference room doors. "You are not going in there," she said coldly. "This ends now." 2 security officers moved closer at once. Not aggressive yet. But ready. Dawson folded his arms with fresh confidence. Finally. Maya stood still beside the wooden bench. Bruised cheek. Wet coat drying in uneven patches. One hand resting lightly on the old leather briefcase. The restored footage still flickered silently on nearby monitors, frozen at the moment of impact. But the room no longer cared about truth. It cared about control. Holloway understood that better than anyone. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced loudly enough for the reporters to hear, "this woman entered a police facility under false pretenses, illegally recorded officers, manipulated evidence, and interfered with a city event." Murmurs spread instantly. Cameras turned toward Maya again. A young reporter whispered, "Who even is she?" Holloway answered before anyone else could. "Nobody important." The words hit harder than the slap. Maya's fingers tightened briefly against the briefcase handle. Then relaxed again. "Interesting," she said quietly. Holloway laughed sharply. "Still doing that calm act?" She stepped closer. "You lost." Dawson pointed toward the conference room stage. "That ceremony is for people who earned their place." Another reporter raised a microphone. "Ma'am, are you refusing to identify yourself?" Holloway cut in immediately. "Because she cannot." Tiny hope flickered when Councilwoman Evelyn Price stepped halfway out of the conference room. Her eyes moved from Maya's bruised cheek to the frozen footage on the hallway monitors. Something inside her no longer sat right. "Perhaps we should delay the ceremony until—" "Absolutely not," Holloway snapped before she could finish. "This department has already been embarrassed enough." Bryce looked exhausted now. Torn between pressure from the mayor's office and the growing fear in the hallway. "Brenda, no, Captain." Holloway pointed directly at Maya. "If she has evidence, she presents it properly. Not like some street scam artist waving around hidden recordings." Maya finally lifted the briefcase slightly onto the bench. "You seem very afraid of this bag." Holloway's jaw tightened. "I am afraid of liars." "Then you should stop talking." Silence. Sharp silence. Several reporters lowered their microphones at the same time. Even Dawson blinked once at the answer. But Holloway recovered immediately. Escort her out, she ordered security. Now. The two officers stepped toward Maya again. One reached carefully for the briefcase strap. Maya did not pull away. She only said one sentence. "Be careful with that badge." The officer froze slightly. "What badge?" The broken latch shifted open again as the briefcase moved. Just enough for the old silver shield inside to catch the overhead lights. Badge number 2714. Ethan Cole saw it clearly this time. So did Bryce. His face drained of color completely. "No." Bryce whispered under his breath. Holloway noticed instantly. "What?" Bryce stared at the silver badge like he had seen a ghost. "That number," but before he could finish, Dawson stepped between them aggressively. "Enough with the drama." He grabbed the briefcase hard and slammed the flap shut himself. "Old junk does not prove anything." Maya's expression changed for the first time all morning. Not fear. Pain. Real pain. "Do not touch that," she said softly. The hallway quieted again. Even Holloway noticed the shift. Whatever sat inside that briefcase mattered more to Maya than protecting herself. Holloway smiled cruelly. "Oh, now we found the weak spot." She looked at security. "Take the bag." One officer hesitated. "Ma'am, without a warrant, I said take it." The officer slowly reached again. Ethan suddenly stepped forward. "Captain, this is wrong." Holloway spun instantly. "You are suspended if you interfere again." Ethan stopped cold. Fear crashed through him visibly. Around them, nobody moved. Nobody helped. The crowd watched the same way crowds always watched when power humiliated somebody publicly. Quiet. Safe. Distant. Maya slowly released her grip on the briefcase strap. The security officer took it awkwardly, uncertain now. Holloway smiled wider. False victory settling across her face like armor. "There," she said softly to Maya. "Now you are just another nobody standing outside the room." The conference room lights brightened fully behind them. Music began softly near the stage. The ceremony was seconds away from starting. Maya stood alone in the hallway now without the briefcase in her hands. Without the recorder. Without the old badge. Without proof anyone could see. Holloway stepped closer one final time. "Watch carefully," she whispered. "This is what power looks like." Then the main conference doors suddenly opened wider. A voice from inside called sharply across the hallway. "Where is Chief Sullivan?" "The mayor is ready." "Where is Chief Sullivan?" "The mayor is ready." The voice echoed across the command floor so loudly that even the reporters stopped moving for a second. The conference room lights poured into the hallway now. Bright white against polished marble. Television cameras already live. Officials waiting near the stage. And standing in the middle of all of it was Maya Sullivan. Bruised cheek. Empty hands. Wet coat. Looking like the least powerful person in the building. Officer Brenda Holloway smiled immediately. False victory radiated off her like heat. "You heard them," she said coldly to security. "Remove her before the chief arrives." One officer reached carefully toward Maya's arm. Then Captain Bryce suddenly spoke. "Wait." The hallway paused. Holloway turned sharply. "Captain." Bryce's eyes stayed locked on the old leather briefcase still sitting in the security officer's hands. Specifically on the silver badge barely visible beneath the broken flap. Badge 2714. His face had gone pale again. "Open the bag," Bryce said quietly. Holloway reacted instantly. "Absolutely not. Open it." This time Bryce sounded less like a tired administrator and more like a man remembering something dangerous. The security officer hesitated before slowly placing the briefcase onto the wooden bench again. Cameras immediately shifted toward it. Reporters stepped closer. The entire floor seemed to lean forward at once. Holloway moved fast. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "We are delaying a mayoral ceremony over a trespasser's personal junk." Maya finally looked at Bryce directly. "You already know whose badge that is." Silence. Real silence this time. Bryce swallowed hard. "I knew Officer Daniel Sullivan." Several older officers near the back looked up sharply at the name. Dawson frowned. "Who?" Nobody answered him immediately. Bryce stared at the silver badge as if the past had physically returned to the room. "Best officer I ever worked with," he said quietly. "He filed misconduct complaints nobody else had the courage to file." Holloway scoffed loudly. "Great. Story time." But her voice cracked slightly at the end. Tiny crack. Tiny fear. Ethan Cole stepped forward again despite himself. "Captain," his eyes moved between Maya and the badge. "Sullivan." Maya remained calm. She did not explain. Did not confirm. Did not ask for sympathy. She only rested one hand lightly against the bench beside the briefcase. Like protecting something sacred. One of the television monitors suddenly flickered again behind them. The recovered archive advanced another few seconds. The hallway speakers crackled with static. Then Holloway's voice filled the room clearly. "Trash like you does not belong in my station." This time nobody laughed. Several reporters lowered their cameras slowly. A city councilman removed his glasses altogether. Even one of the security officers stepped backward slightly away from Holloway. "Turn it off," Holloway snapped immediately. "The file is corrupted." Dawson pointed aggressively at the screens. "Anybody can splice audio now." But fewer people believed him this time. The room had started changing. Slowly. Dangerously. Have you ever watched a crowd realize they may have chosen the wrong side? Maya's eyes never left Holloway. "Funny," she said softly. "You were very confident before the footage started speaking." Holloway stepped closer instantly. "You think one sentence changes anything?" Maya answered quietly. "No. Patterns do." Another silence. Bigger now. Bryce suddenly reached into the briefcase himself. Holloway moved forward immediately. "Captain, do not touch evidence without authorization." Bryce ignored her. His hand disappeared beneath the papers and slowly pulled out the old silver badge. The metal caught the overhead lights across the hallway. Worn edges. Scratched shield. Number 2714 engraved beneath the city seal. Several older officers froze completely. One whispered under his breath, "That cannot be." Holloway looked around the room and realized something horrifying. People were no longer looking at Maya like a nobody. They were looking at her like a question. The mayor's chief of staff stepped out of the conference room carrying a clipboard. "Captain Bryce," he said impatiently, "the mayor needs Chief Sullivan on stage immediately." Bryce never looked away from Maya. "One moment." Holloway's composure cracked harder now. "This is insane," she barked. "She manipulated all of you with some dead cop's badge." Maya finally spoke one sentence that made even the reporters stop breathing. "My father died believing this department could still deserve that badge." The room went still. Completely still. Even Holloway said nothing for one dangerous second. Then suddenly the giant digital screen above the conference stage flickered. The city seal vanished. New text began loading slowly across the monitor. "Appointment confirmation, Chief M." The giant screen above the conference stage flickered harder. "Appointment confirmation, Chief M." The rest of the letters struggled to load through static while every person in the hallway stared upward in complete silence. Officer Brenda Holloway's confidence finally cracked. "Turn that screen off," she snapped immediately. "Now." Nobody moved. One of the IT technicians swallowed hard. "Ma'am, the system is linked directly to the mayor's office." Holloway stepped toward him aggressively. "I said shut it down." "You cannot," Maya Sullivan said quietly. Her voice cut through the hallway cleaner than shouting ever could. Holloway spun toward her. "You planned this." Maya met her eyes calmly. "No. You planned this the moment you believed a badge gave you permission to humiliate people." The giant screen refreshed again. This time the letters finished loading completely. "Appointment confirmation, Chief Maya Sullivan." The room stopped breathing. Reporters lowered cameras halfway without realizing it. One security officer physically stepped backward from Maya. Ethan Cole stared at the screen, then at the bruised woman standing beside the bench, and whispered, "Oh my God." Dawson's face went completely blank. "No." Bryce closed his eyes for 1 second like the truth hurt to look at directly. Then he turned toward the entire hallway and spoke clearly. "This is Chief Maya Sullivan." Silence crashed through the command floor. Real silence. Heavy enough to feel. Holloway laughed once. Short. Sharp. Desperate. "No. Absolutely not." She pointed wildly toward Maya. "She walked into my precinct dressed like a civilian." Maya answered calmly. That was the point. Another emotional shift hit the crowd immediately. Reporters began whispering over each other. Phones lowered. Nobody looked at Maya with pity anymore. They looked at Holloway. The recovered footage suddenly advanced again on every monitor. This time the full clip played cleanly. Holloway shoving Maya backward. Dawson laughing. Maya asking calmly for badge identification. Then the slap. Loud. Clear. Impossible to deny. Gasps broke across the hallway. One city council member muttered under his breath, "Jesus Christ." Holloway pointed frantically toward the screens. "That footage is manipulated." "No," one IT technician said quietly. "Archive verification confirms original timestamp integrity." Holloway turned pale. "You are lying." "I am reading the server audit," the technician replied. Deletion attempts were made after the incident. Every eye in the room shifted slowly toward Holloway and Dawson. Maya remained perfectly still while the world around her changed. She did not smile. Did not celebrate. She simply stood there with the bruise still visible across her cheek. Bryce slowly lifted the old silver badge from the bench again. "Officer Daniel Sullivan," he said quietly to the crowd. "Her father." Several older officers lowered their eyes immediately in shame. Bryce's voice thickened slightly. "One of the most honorable cops this city ever had." Holloway looked between Maya and the badge like her mind could not process either one. "Why would a chief walk in looking like that?" Maya answered softly. "Because ordinary people do not enter police stations wearing stars on their collars." The room went silent again. Even the reporters stopped typing. Ethan Cole finally stepped fully forward. "She asked for your badge number," he said directly to Holloway. "You never even asked her name." Dawson snapped back instantly. "You little rat, enough." The word came from the mayor himself as he stepped out onto the conference floor. 2 state officials followed behind him along with internal affairs investigators in dark jackets. The atmosphere changed immediately. Official. Dangerous. Final. Holloway straightened her posture desperately. "Mayor, this is being twisted out of context." The mayor looked directly at the footage replaying on the screens. Then at Maya's bruised face. Then at the recorder sitting inside the open briefcase. "What context," he asked coldly, "justifies that?" Holloway had no answer. Dawson tried anyway. "Sir," she provoked officers. The recovered audio interrupted him mid-sentence. Maya's recorded voice filled the hallway once more. Calm. Controlled. "Officer, all I asked was to speak with the captain." Then Holloway's voice followed immediately after. "Trash like you does not belong in my station." Nobody defended her this time. Nobody laughed. Nobody looked away. Maya finally stepped toward the conference room entrance. Security officers moved aside instantly without being asked. The same officers who had tried to remove her minutes earlier now stood rigid with embarrassment. Holloway watched the entire reversal happen in real time. Power leaving her face one heartbeat at a time. Then Internal Affairs investigator Marcus Reed stepped forward holding a printed audit report. "Officer Holloway," he said evenly, "would you like to explain why your access credentials were used to initiate deletion of Camera 12 archives at 8:16 this morning?" Holloway froze. Completely froze. The entire room stared at her now. And for the first time all morning, Maya Sullivan finally understood something worse than the slap itself. This was not the first time they had erased the truth. The hallway stayed frozen around Officer Brenda Holloway like the entire building had finally stopped protecting her. Internal Affairs investigator Marcus Reed held the audit report steady in his hands while television cameras captured every second. "Officer Holloway," he repeated evenly, "your credentials initiated deletion of archive footage at 8:16 this morning." Holloway's mouth opened once. Closed again. Then desperation replaced arrogance. "That system access is shared," she snapped quickly. "Anybody could have used my login." Reed nodded slightly. "We checked that." He lifted another document. "Biometric confirmation matched your fingerprint." Silence spread through the command floor. Final silence now. Dawson stepped backward first. Tiny movement. But everybody noticed. Holloway turned toward him immediately. "Say something." Dawson avoided her eyes. That hurt more than the evidence. The mayor slowly stepped forward onto the conference floor beside Maya Sullivan. "Officer Brenda Holloway," he said coldly, "you are suspended immediately pending criminal investigation." Holloway stared at him in disbelief. "You cannot do this because of one misunderstanding." "No," the mayor replied. "This happened because of a pattern." The recovered footage replayed again behind them. Holloway insulting Maya. Refusing identification procedure. The slap. Dawson laughing. The room watched in complete silence this time. No excuses left. No alternate story left. One older officer near the back quietly removed his own hat and lowered his head. Ethan Cole finally exhaled for what felt like the first time all morning. Dawson tried one final time. "Sir, the department cannot collapse over political pressure." Maya looked at him calmly. "Departments collapse when truth becomes optional." Reed stepped toward Dawson now. "Officer Dawson, you are also suspended pending obstruction review." Dawson's face drained instantly. "You are kidding." Reed did not blink. "You discouraged witness reporting, participated in intimidation, and attempted evidence suppression." Dawson looked toward Bryce desperately. "Captain." Bryce stood motionless for one painful second. Then he slowly removed his captain's badge from his chest and placed it onto the nearby table beside Daniel Sullivan's old silver shield. "I should have stopped this culture years ago," he said quietly. The hallway went still again. Public consequence. Public shame. Public truth. Holloway's voice cracked now. "Bryce, you are really choosing her over your own officers?" Bryce finally looked directly at her. "No," his eyes moved toward Maya's bruised cheek. "I am choosing what the badge was supposed to mean." Holloway had no answer left. Around the hallway, reporters slowly lowered cameras. Some city staff looked ashamed for ever believing her. One security officer quietly returned Maya's old leather briefcase to her with both hands, almost respectfully now. "Ma'am," he said softly. Maya accepted it gently. No triumph. No revenge in her face. Only exhaustion. Reed reached toward the old silver badge still resting on the table. "Officer Daniel Sullivan," he said quietly. "I trained under him as a rookie." Maya looked at him carefully for the first time. Reed nodded once. He reported corruption when nobody else would. Several officers nearby shifted uncomfortably. Because now they understood the deeper truth. This was not one bad morning. This was years of silence finally breaking open. The mayor gestured toward the conference room stage. "Chief Sullivan," he said respectfully, "the city is waiting." For the first time all day, people moved aside from Maya before she even took a step. Cameras followed her now with respect instead of suspicion. Ethan Cole stood straighter when she passed him. "I am sorry," he whispered quietly. Maya paused beside him. "You spoke when it mattered." Ethan swallowed hard. "Not soon enough." Maya answered softly, "Soon enough to stop becoming them." The words hit several officers harder than any suspension notice could. Behind them, internal affairs officers approached Holloway and Dawson formally. No handcuffs. No spectacle. Just quiet removal of power. Reed held out his hand. "Your badges." Holloway hesitated. Long enough for everybody to see the humiliation fully land. Then slowly, with shaking fingers, she unclipped her badge from her uniform and placed it into Reed's hand. The metallic sound against his palm echoed through the hallway. Dawson followed seconds later. Status reversed completely now. The same officers who mocked Maya for not belonging had just lost the very symbols they hid behind. Maya stood at the conference room entrance holding her father's old silver badge in one hand and her damaged briefcase in the other. Councilwoman Evelyn Price stepped beside her quietly. "Your father would have been proud today." Maya looked down at the scratched badge number. 2714, he would have wished it never took this much pain. Then from inside the conference room, applause slowly began. Not loud. Not political. Human. And near the back of the room, the little boy from the precinct lobby stood beside his mother staring at Maya with wide hopeful eyes. The applause inside the conference room did not sound political anymore. It sounded relieved. Human. Maya Sullivan stood at the entrance for one quiet second holding her father's old silver badge in one hand and a damaged leather briefcase in the other. The bruise on her cheek remained visible beneath the bright lights, but something else had changed now. Nobody looked through her anymore. The same hallway that treated her like trash an hour earlier had gone completely still as she stepped forward. People moved aside instinctively. Reporters lowered cameras. Security officers straightened their posture. Even the marble floor seemed quieter beneath her shoes. The mayor waited beside the stage with the official chief's uniform folded neatly across one arm. Four silver stars gleamed beneath the lights. "Chief Sullivan," he said softly, "Ridgemont is ready for you." Maya looked at the uniform for a moment before answering. "Then Ridgemont needs to remember who the badge belongs to." The mayor nodded once. No speech could have said more. Behind them, internal affairs officers quietly escorted Brenda Holloway and Craig Dawson toward the elevators. No handcuffs. No public humiliation. Just consequences. Holloway stopped once before the doors closed and looked back toward Maya. Pride had finally drained from her face. "I did not know who you were," she muttered weakly. Maya held her gaze calmly. That was never the problem. Silence followed her answer all the way to the elevator doors. Ethan Cole stood near the back of the conference room still shaken by everything he had witnessed. Maya noticed him immediately. "Officer Cole." He straightened instantly. "Ma'am." She walked toward him carrying the old silver badge carefully in both hands now. Good officers stay silent because they are afraid, she said quietly. Bad officers count on that fear. Ethan lowered his eyes. I should have spoken sooner. Maya gently placed her father's badge into his palm for one brief second before taking it back again. You spoke before the truth disappeared. Ethan looked up again. What happens now? Maya glanced across the room toward the dozens of officers watching silently. Now we rebuild what people stopped trusting. The room stayed quiet. But this silence felt different from the others. Not fear. Reflection. Near the back row, the young mother from the precinct lobby slowly stepped into the room holding her little boy's hand. The child looked up at Maya with wide eyes. You are the police boss now. A few nervous laughs broke softly through the crowd. Maya knelt slightly so she could look him in the eye. I work for people like you, she answered gently. The boy thought about that seriously before nodding once. Then maybe people will stop being scared to come inside. Several officers lowered their heads after hearing that. The truth had finally reached the place policies never could. Councilwoman Evelyn Price stepped onto the stage beside the podium. Effective immediately, she announced clearly, Ridgemont Police Department will reopen all unresolved misconduct complaints connected to deleted or missing footage. A wave of murmurs spread across the room. Some officers looked nervous. Others looked relieved for the first time in years. Additionally, she continued, Chief Sullivan has requested the creation of the Daniel Sullivan Integrity Program to train recruits in ethical policing and civilian dignity. Maya looked down briefly at her father's old badge. The scratched metal reflected softly beneath the stage lights now. No longer evidence. No longer pain. Legacy. Bryce slowly approached the stage from the side of the room. He no longer wore his captain's badge. Chief, he said quietly, I failed this department. Maya studied him for a long moment before answering. Then help fix it. Bryce nodded once, eyes wet with shame and relief at the same time. No revenge. No public destruction. Just accountability. The kind Daniel Sullivan once believed policing could still deserve. The mayor finally handed Maya the new chief's badge. Heavy silver. Untouched. She looked at it beside her father's worn shield for one silent second. Past and future resting in the same hands. Then she clipped the new badge carefully onto her uniform. The room rose to its feet slowly. Not because protocol demanded it. Because respect finally did. Outside the conference room windows, the storm clouds over Ridgemont had begun to break apart. Morning sunlight spilled across the marble floor in long golden lines. Maya walked back through the same hallway where she had been humiliated hours earlier. But this time, every officer standing there moved aside quietly. Near the exit doors, one elderly janitor paused with his mop bucket and gave her a small nod of respect. Maya nodded back just as warmly. Because dignity did not belong only to chiefs, uniforms, or city officials. It belonged to everyone who walked through those doors. And as the precinct lobby opened for the afternoon shift, Ethan Cole held the entrance for the next frightened civilian who stepped inside and said the words nobody there would ever ignore again. Good afternoon, ma'am. How can we help you today?